Beijing again says it's opposed to trade wars amid weaker global economic growth forecasts.
Trade barriers, including tariffs, serve nobody's interests and are not conducive to prosperity and stability of the world economy. Disagreements on trade and business should be resolved through dialogue and consultation, and the world economy should not pay the price.
The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development Project's global GDP will grow slower this and next year compared with 2024. It attributed this to higher trade barriers among major economies and growing geopolitical and policy uncertainty. The European Union delays retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. EU leaders are rethinking countermeasures on $4.9 billion of American products. That includes a 50% tariff on bourbon. The first round was set for April 1st, with additional tariffs on April 13th. Those levies followed President Donald Trump's 25% tariff on metal imports. The president also threatened a 200% tax on wines and spirits. All EU countermeasures will now take effect in mid-April. The countdown is also on in the U.S.-Canada trade war. President Trump paused tariffs on the auto industry this month, but that exemption runs out in early April, and President Trump is threatening more tariffs. Cherri Harris is back with us now. Thank you. She's CEO and founder of Swint Logistics Group in Detroit, Michigan. Welcome to the show. Great having you. I want to start off with how have truckers reacted to Trump's tariff plans?
Well, our reaction, we were in a project meeting for Michigan Department of Transportation talking about an upcoming project. And so we're, as small businesses, requesting line items to be able to fulfill our contracts as they're bidded out in the future and they may go long term. So we're just trying to protect ourselves to make sure that we don't go out of business.
I see this, and I'd like to dig a little deeper. Which freight types will tariffs impact most severely?
I think tariffs will most severely impact, first off, the cost, steel and aluminum tariffs are going to impact the cost to repair our vehicles. The steel and aluminum tariffs are also pushing the cost of new vehicles up, estimated to $35,000. So those tariffs alone, and then Michigan alone imports like 540,000 barrels of crude oil a day from Canada. That's just Michigan. The U.S. alone, it's millions of barrels daily. So that's a direct effect on fuel costs, diesel, asphalt.
I see. And how might these tariffs affect truckers' costs overall beyond, of course, what we just covered?
Maintenance costs, the cost to do business. We're concerned about a freight recession, a potential freight recession, because if there's a decreased need for freight, then, we're severely concerned about our workers and how can we continue to employ. It's 100,000 full-time truckers, haul surface goods from Mexico to Canada daily. If that demand for freight decreases, we're talking supply chain disruptions, possible layoffs, maybe smaller businesses going out of business. So it is a direct impact.
And Cherri, do you have an idea, do you have an estimate of possible trucker job losses or cuts?
It's just so much uncertainties. The tariffs are on again, off again. Now we're waiting to April 2nd. So we're just, preparing for the worst and praying for the best, and just, praying that we can keep the wheels moving.
Right. And which responses are leaders deploying? What's going on now looking forward?
So looking forward, we're adjusting our budgets, to try to make sure that we can afford to maintain the equipment that we have. And we're estimating, increased costs at about 30%, even though there's a 25% tariff. There's always, increased costs. So we're trying to, budget so that we can maintain the equipment we have and also prepare for fuel costs to go up. And as we're doing future contracts, we're trying to make sure that there are line items in there to ensure that any materials that are needed to complete our scope of work, if they go up based on these tariffs, that we can still afford to complete the job. So they're putting in line items where, if these things go up, we can revisit the contract. So that's the safety net for us. But again, so many what ifs.
And how long, I mean, which length of time do you believe most businesses can still operate under these circumstances before, it gets even worse?
I don't know. That is a big question, a big what if, because, on April 2nd, are the tariffs gonna go into effect? We don't know. So it's like a game of back and forth. And I feel like we're the player. We're the pawns in the game. And so we're just again, just we don't know. We really don't know.
Cherri Harris, thank you so much for your insight and your time. Great having you.
Thank you, Diego, for having me.